Browning's Dracula is a black and white US horror movie from 1931, considered the first authorized adaptation of the same-named 1897 Bram Stoker novel. However, it is not directly based on it, but mainly on the same-named 1924 stage play, in which Bela Lugosi had already successfully played Count Dracula, which itself is only loosely based on the book. Among other things, Lucy's admirers, such as the Texan Quincy Morris, are missing. In the novel, he kills Dracula in the final and then dies of his injuries. Or her later fiancé Arthur Holmwood, who finances the vampire hunt with the inherited fortune after her death. And another, Dr. Seward, is now her father. In contrast to book and stage play, it is not Jonathan Harker, Mina's fiancé, who is Dracula's visitor, but Renfield. For the novel and its real adaptations, see the retrospectives on Nosferatu and Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Your life's a mystery, mine is a number book. If I could read your mind, I think I'd take a look. I don't care, baby, I'm not scared.
The English estate agent Renfield travels to Transylvania on business, as the reclusive Count Dracula wants to buy in London Carfax Abbey, a derelict empty building, ignoring all warnings about vampires along the way. Arriving at the old castle after a friendly reception, he is anesthetized at diner. The Count drinks his blood, making Renfield his slave, and he sets off with him on his journey home to England. Dracula, who can also turn into a bat or a wolf, is soon from his new home in London up to mischief. And Lucy, the friend of Dr. Seward's daughter Mina, becomes his victim, visibly wasting away. Dr. Seward, Dracula's neighbor and head of the local insane asylum where their friends died, insect-eating Renfield has also been sent, who is constantly escaping, asks the famous Professor Van Helsing for help, who soon suspects the mysterious Count and uses his missing mirror image to expose him as a vampire, who puts Mina under his spell and abducts her to Carfax Abbey. As dawn is already breaking, Dracula is forced to retreat into his coffin. Van Helsing uses this opportunity and destroys the vampire by driving a wooden stake through his heart, thereby saving Mina.
What have you got to fight? What do you need to prove? You're always telling lies, and that's the only truth. I don't care, baby, I'm not scared.
This classic vampire movie, which is still worth seeing today, received mostly positive feedback and was the studio's biggest financial success to date. However, Lugosi did not appear in any of the sequels, apart from Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, the comedic conclusion to the Universal's Dracula series. The fact that he is so often associated with the Dracula role in the public perception is also due to the fact that he played a different vampire in 3 other movies, but was still perceived as Dracula by the audience.
Tonight the streets are full of actors. I don't know why. Oh, take these dogs away from me before they bite.
At the same time as the US version, a Spanish one, about 30 minutes longer, was filmed in the same locations, at night, with a completely different crew except for 2 small supporting actors, which I personally prefer for most of the shots. George Melford's very well cast, in my opinion much more coherent version, differs by, among others, extended dialogue, rearrangement of scenes, unused alternative shots from the US version, and some things also take place differently. For example, Renfield does not cut himself on paper here, but on a knife, and falls victim to the 3 brides. The ship passage is much shorter, but much more sinister, ingeniously staged. His first victim on the street is missing in this version. While there is additional material as with Renfield, it's also a little more revealing with the female lead's wardrobe. Only here actual bite marks can be seen, and Lucy is redeemed at the end by a stake through the heart, where in the US version she's probably still out there walking undead around.
What have you got to say? Shadows in your past. I thought that if we played, you
In the 1936 sequel, the professor, here named von instead of Van Helsing because of the murder of Count Dracula in the last movie, is in prison. Psychologist Garth, an old friend, initially thinks von Helsing is crazy too, until Dracula's body disappears and victims with vampire bite marks turn up. It turns out that Dracula's daughter, Countess Zaleska, has stolen his corpse and burned it in the vain hope of freeing herself from his curse. After Garth fails to cure her of her obsession with blood, he also rejects her love. She kidnaps his secretary/love interest and gives him an ultimatum in Dracula's old castle, but dies at the hands of her jealous servant, who in turn is himself gunned down by policemen rushing in, thanks to von Helsing.
What have you got to hide? Who will it compromise? Where do we have to be so I can laugh and you'll be free? I'd go anywhere, baby. I don't care. I'm not scared.
Lambert Hillier's Dracula's Daughter was not quite as successful as its predecessor at a slightly higher cost, but received mostly positive feedback. I personally was quite bored. Modern sources claim that the movie, precisely because of the unmistakably lesbian undertone, author Anne Rice also cites it as an inspiration, is loosely based on Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu's 1872 Gothic novella Carmilla, which is also considered an influence for Bram Stoker's novel. Instead, it is supposedly based on and from many suspected omitted chapter from Dracula, published in 1914 as Dracula's guest with 5 other short stories by Stoker's widow, but bears no resemblance to the original, which also appeared in 1991 as Dracula, the Lady in the Tomb comic. This follows an unnamed Englishman, but believed to be Jonathan Harker, on a visit to Munich before he sets off to Transylvania. On his way to a depopulated village, he is caught in a snowstorm and finds a beautiful dead woman laid in a burial chamber in a cemetery. A bolt of lightning destroys the tomb and sets fire to the woman, who was about to rise to her feet, whereupon he loses consciousness. He wakes up in the claws of a wolf and is rescued by a troop of soldiers, apparently paid by Dracula to ensure his safety. Michael Pfeiffer's unwatchable same-named garbage from 2008 on amateur level also has, in my view, nothing to do with the original, and is a time vampire of which all copies should be burnt immediately and the ashes buried deep in sacred ground.
Tonight the streets are full of actors. I don't know why. I'll take these dogs away from me before they bite.
In 1943, Catherine is obsessed with the idea of immortality. To the displeasure of her fiancé Frank, becomes involved with the mysterious descendant of Dracula in Robert Sidomak's Son of Dracula, whom she invites to her country estate in the States. His name, according to the opening credits, is also Dracula, but in the movie pronounced backwards, Count Alucard. When she leaves Frank for him, he tries unsuccessfully to shoot the Count, but kills Catherine and flees, and discovers afterwards that Catherine has become a vampire. She now helps Frank to eliminate Count Dr. Acula because she only wanted to use him to gain immortality, but ends up being killed by Frank herself, who never intended to spend the rest of eternity with her as a vampire.
Tonight I walked and made my mind up. I know it's right. I know these dark styles never run us, but I can fight if I was you.
Backwards, Dracula Lon Chaney Jr. has already appeared as the Wolfman, Mummy and Frankenstein's monster. Nothing concrete could be found out about the cost and box office of this harebrained nonsense, only entertaining for its trash value. But it was obviously successful enough to justify further sequels.
If I was you, I wouldn't treat me the way you do. If I was you, I wouldn't treat me the way you do.
The same applies in 1945 to House of Dracula, a kind of sequel to House of Frankenstein from the previous year, see the Frankenstein retrospective, with almost the same main actors and also directed by Earle C. Kenton. Dracula comes to the house of the friendly Dr. Edelman to find cure for his vampirism. At the same time, Talbot / the Wolfman appears, whom the Doctor is supposed to cure from his lycanthropy. However, Dracula has now changed his plans because of the attractive nurse and gives the Doctor a dose of his contaminated blood during a transfusion session, which later transforms the warm-hearted Doctor into a vicious Jekyll and Hyde monster, before Edelman exposes him to sunlight and he disintegrates. While searching for Talbot, who jumped over a cliff out of desperation, they come across Frankenstein's monster in a cave system that many years ago, but precisely last year in the final of House of Frankenstein, sank into the swamp together with the insane Dr. Niemann. Edelman starts Talbot's treatment, but Dracula's poison begins to take effect and is able to free him from his werewolf curse, but also commits several murders in the nearby Vasaria. And when he brings the Frankenstein monster back to life, Talbot shoots him. Meanwhile, the villagers form a mob. The laboratory catches fire and the creature meets its end in the flames. The conclusion of the serious Universal Frankenstein series clearly shows signs of aging, as the monster mashup was already better seen in the previous one. Its only standout feature is really just the Hunchback nurse / Igor replacement. Again, not much can be found about cost and box office. It apparently got rather negative feedback at the time, and in my opinion again only entertains with its high trash value. In 1979, John Badham's American-British Dracula remake of the 1931 classic sticks even closer to the stage play, in which lead Frank Langella, like Lugosi, had also previously appeared successfully. However, he swaps, similar to Nosferatu from the same year, confusingly the names / roles of Mina and Lucy. Dracula travels to England into his new home in a castle in the immediate vicinity of an insane asylum. His ship is wrecked and Mina finds him at night in a cave. He meets Dr. Seward, the director of the asylum, and his daughter Lucy. Mina is her sickly friend, whose condition continues to deteriorate until she finally dies. Seward informs Mina's father, Professor Van Helsing, who immediately orders an exhumation after several people, mainly children, disappear in the neighborhood. They find the undead Mina in the catacombs beneath her grave, and her father drives a stake through her heart. He manages to unmask Dracula as the source of the evil, who wants to flee back to Transylvania by ship with Lucy. Together with her fiancé, Jonathan Harker, he confronts the vampire lord on board of the sailing ship, and they succeed in dragging Dracula out of the cargo hold and up into the rays of the now risen sun, where he crumbles screaming to ashes. Dracula, a love story, no joke, that's really the title, received mostly positive reviews, but could not even make twice of its $12 million budget in the US back, and is considered a disappointment. It also quickly got its reputation as a shallow housewife Dracula, and was already back then, for real horror fans like me, even if it is immediately beautifully staged and has some very good effects, far too tame and somehow boring.